All right, boys, what's going on? We're here again with Premier League predictions for match week 16. Been a little bit since I made a YouTube video. I've been posting these on, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram Reels for the past 10 days while we had that congested fixture. So instead of doing like a normal recap, I'm just gonna let you guys know what I had on the correct score and the 1x2 results. So in match week 14, I didn't get a single correct score right. I was 5 out of 10 on the 1x2, about 50% there. And then in match week 15, there was no Liverpool-Everton game, so that didn't get counted. And the West Ham and Wolves match is on right now. I think it's still 0-0 in the 35th minute. I did get one correct score, which was the crazy Brighton and Leicester 2-2 draw. Something exciting I do have for the next YouTube video will be that I will have every single game week logged. I will have all my score predictions, all the 1x2 markets, and even the BTTS and over under 2.5 percentages. And I'll say this much, there was a match week where I got every single both teams to score right. That was match week 8. One of the coolest things added on this sheet is that I can track all my score predictions. I can see the 1x2 results, the BTTS results, and even the over under 2.5 results. There is so much information and data here that I can see how well I predicted each team, each game week, etc., etc., etc. There's so much stuff here. So on the next video, I will have that prepared and ready to show you guys. Boys, if you guys haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and like this video. Also, drop a comment below on your predictions, which predictions you agree with, which ones you disagree with. I love reading them, and I love circling back after the matches end to see who was right and who was wrong. I might even start adding those comments in the YouTube video if someone gets it spot on. We'd love to see that. So we have Arsenal versus Everton. Arsenal is 1.25 on the 1x2. Everton is 12 odd. The over-under sits at about 3 sounds right for this match. Everton is still somewhat decent defensively. BTTS, yes, being 2.2 does make sense, but I will have to keep track of the midweek Champions League, Europa League, and Conference League for some of the Prem teams. So the head-to-head for Arsenal looks very good here. They are coming off that disappointing 1-1 draw versus Fulham. Everton did not play in match week 15, so their last result is that nice 4-0 win over Wolves. Historically, it's been all Arsenal, right? The last 3 Premier League matches, Arsenal have won them all by 5-1, 4-0, 2-1. For Arsenal and Everton, I'm going to keep it pretty simple here. I'm going to go with a 2-0 Arsenal win. Liverpool versus Fulham, we have Liverpool sitting at 1.31 odds. Fulham is at 9 odd. The over-under for this match sits at about 3.5, which is pretty normal to me, and the both teams to score market is sitting at about 1.8. So both teams to score is 1.8, which is, I think, pretty normal. I think I could have even seen it being like 1.85, maybe 1.9 if they were putting heavy respect on Liverpool at Anfield. But I guess the books are thinking that Fulham could, there is a chance for Fulham to get a solid goal here. Liverpool at home in the Prem have seen 2 straight 2-0 results and also a 2-1 result versus Brighton. We do see a Champions League result of 4-0 and 2-0 here. So, I mean, if you're doing the math, right, that's 10 goals, none conceded in their last 4 matches in all competitions. Fulham away from home is about as inconsistent as you can get, and I've talked about this over time where we've seen a win, loss, draw, win, draw. If Fulham do get it done, it'd be pretty interesting because they did draw 1-1 against Tottenham when they were underdogs, and they also drew 1-1 against Arsenal when they were obviously underdogs there. So something to just keep track of in that aspect. The last thing I want to see is if Liverpool has ever dropped points to Fulham at home, and it seems like only one time recently in 2021, which was 3 years ago still. So I think overall, I'm not too concerned about that. The one thing I'm really trying to go back and forth on, though, is the both team to score market. I think I'm going to give Fulham that goal. So for Liverpool and Fulham, I'm going to go with a 2-1 Liverpool win. Newcastle and Leicester City. So we see Newcastle at 1.32, and the first thing that jumps to my mind is Newcastle being 1.32 already sounds insane to me. We know how inconsistent they can be, how back and forth they can be. They play good teams tough. They play bad teams bad. It's just, they play to their level, it seems like here. So I'm very interested to see what the other numbers look like. We have the over-under sitting at about 3.25. I could see that, right? Newcastle has games where they go crazy, but they also have games where they don't do anything. Both teams to score is 1.75, so they really aren't thinking Leicester will score, because in my head, I was thinking Leicester would be 1.6 here on the BTTS, yes. So we look at Newcastle's form recently, and we see a win versus Nottingham, a loss versus West Ham, which is bad, a draw versus Crystal Palace, which is very bad, a draw versus Liverpool, which is very good, and then a Brentford loss. And if anyone does remember on the predictions I made here, for Newcastle and Liverpool, I did predict 1-1, with the thought being it was an inconsistent Newcastle result. Now, some people might think that if I'm predicting an inconsistent result for a team, that I would predict them to do poorly. However, I thought an inconsistent result for Newcastle against Liverpool was a 1-1 draw. Now, obviously, it was a 3-3 draw. Now, I don't think I'd ever predict that, but still, the draw aspect was still there. And on top of that, when I was looking at Brentford and Newcastle, I predicted 2-1 for Brentford because, again, I thought what was the most obvious thing to me after a draw versus Liverpool was that they would draw points. And not just draw points, they would outright lose to Brentford away from home. And that's kind of just how the Premier League works, right? So historically, we can see a 0-0 draw. We see a 2-0 Newcastle win, a 3-0 Newcastle win, a 2-1 Newcastle win, and a 4-0 Leicester win. This is the type of prediction where I would actually back the odds here more than what I believe. And like I said, I do, like, in the hearts of hearts, I do believe Newcastle could easily drop this game, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. But I'm just going to trust the odds here on this, and I'm going to go with a 3-1 Newcastle win. Wolves versus Ipswich. We see Wolves at 1.88, Ipswich at 3.8 with a draw at 3.8. The over-under for this match sits at about 2.75, probably closes at around 3. Both teams to score is at about 1.67 here. Now, we look at Wolves' home form, and it's just okay, right? I mean, they've lost to Bournemouth, they've beaten Southampton, they drew Crystal Palace, they lost to Man City 2-1, and they lost to Liverpool 2-1. So, if you really took these last 5 matches from Wolves at home, you can't really hate on it too hard, right? They've put up a fight in every single match, it seems like, and they play 2 of the top 4 teams very tough in Man City and Liverpool. We go to Ipswich away form, and I mean, outside of the Tottenham crazy win, I had Nottingham, Ipswich 1-1 in that match. I was a bit disappointed that it ended 1-0 there. Nothing in the recent head-to-head can help us. As much as I feel like Wolves are a very slept-on team, and Wolves can really ruin a lot of predictions here, the 1.88 on the 1x2 just makes me feel like this is not going to end in a Wolves win. For Wolves and Ipswich, I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. Nottingham Forest versus Aston Villa. We see Nottingham Forest at 2.55 on the win, and Aston Villa being 2.65 on the win. Already, it's a bit surprising that Nottingham Forest, although they've had some really solid results, they actually have been humbled a couple of times, right? A couple of times that would make you think like, 2.55 for them is pretty crazy. But also, we do know Aston Villa gets a lot of love overall, even though they've been a very inconsistent team as well. Let's look at the over-under here. The over-under sits at about 2.753, and the both teams score is about 1.67, so they do feel like both teams should be scoring here. Nottingham Forest has scored in every home match, it seems like, except the Fulham. Yeah, I mean, Nottingham Forest have played 7 games in the Premier League at home, and they've only not scored in one of them, which is against Fulham. And we do know Fulham is that type of team, right? They're that type of team that you, right when you think you know Fulham, you don't know Fulham anymore. Aston Villa away from home is in absolutely tragic form, and they will be playing midweeks, which is something we do have to keep in mind. They've lost to Tottenham 4-1, they've lost to Liverpool 2-0, and they lost to Chelsea 3-0. I really do feel like, as much as we all feel like Liverpool and Chelsea are better than Aston Villa, I still think losing 2 games like this on a 5-0 GD is not good by any means, right? That's a bit disappointing, I'd say. And then through the history, we've seen Aston Villa have won 4-2, Nottingham Forest have won 2-0, Aston Villa have won 2-0. So right away, I see the home team have won the last 3 matchups. This is a tough one. This is a tough one because I think I'm uncertain on all 3 aspects of this match specifically, whether it's the 1x2, the BTTS, or the over-under 2.5. I feel like with looking at the odds and thinking about Aston Villa's away form, thinking about Aston Villa playing midweek, Nottingham Forest being good at home, having low-scoring games, but the odds don't really indicate that, right? The odds are showing 2.55 for Nottingham Forest and 2.65 for Aston Villa. The way my brain is shaping up this prediction, I feel like I'm going to go with an Aston Villa result. I just cannot decide if I think they outright win the match or if they just get the draw. I'm going to go with a Nottingham Forest Aston Villa 2-1 Aston Villa win. Brighton and Crystal Palace. We got Brighton at 1.85 here, Crystal Palace at 3.9. I've just lost it with Crystal Palace, I think. Just looking at my statistics, Crystal Palace is such an impossible team for me to predict, and also Brighton is. But let's look at the odds here. So we have Brighton at 1.85, Crystal Palace at 3.9. The over-under for the match sits right at about 3. 3 makes sense to me. Both teams to scores at 1.67. Very standard numbers across the board here. Brighton at home, as you can see, win, draw, loss, win, draw. Just not any consistent home results here. Crystal Palace away, kind of the same idea. Loss, win, draw, draw, win. So Crystal Palace has actually been in better form rather than what people might think here. Their last 3 Premier League matches being draw, draw, win. Draw against the Wolves is not great. Aston Villa draw is good. Ipswich win, solid, I'd say, right? A win away from home when you're Crystal Palace at this point in the season, very good. So if we go overall here, recently Brighton has won 4-1. Crystal Palace has drawn 1-1, 1-0 win, 1-1 draw, 1-1 draw. I feel like like everyone can kind of predict where I'm going to go with this match. As much as I want to predict Brighton to win, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to predict a 1-1 draw between Brighton and Crystal Palace. Manchester City versus Manchester United. We got the Manchester Derby here. 1.49 for Manchester City. Manchester United is 5.75. It's pretty high, I'd say. The over-under in this match is at about 3.5. Both teams to score is 1.57, so they got them both scoring. And just like recently, let's look at the recent head-to-heads here. We have 2-1, 2-1, 3-1, 3-0, 2-1. Now, some of these involve some different type. We got the Community Shield, the FA Cup. In any case, though, only one of these matches has gone over 3.5 goals, right? The City 3-1 win here. At first, I thought 3.5 goals is a bit much, but it really might just be a sharp number of whether they can get 3 goals or not. Manchester City at home, as much as they have been sliding, they still have been pretty decent at home, with the only real blemish being that 4-0 Tottenham loss. But we do kind of know Tottenham is their bogey team a little bit. United away from home, I mean, it's bad, right? It's as bad as it can get. We're talking draws versus Ipswich. We're talking Arsenal losses, but not even scoring in the match. We're talking about drawing Fenner in the Europa League. We're talking about losing outright to West Ham, and West Ham has not been that special this year. As much as I usually would like to try to predict a low-scoring type of draw in a Manchester derby, like the odds are kind of telling me that they are very down on United after that last result they had. It's kind of hard for me to try to predict this match in a sense of you have City coming off the 2-2 Palace draw, you have United coming off a 2-3 disaster against Nottingham Forest in Old Trafford. So there's a bunch of different ways my brain is going about this, which is both teams have been conceding, right? They both conceded 2 and 3 goals in their last matches. So I feel like this game can go in a bunch of different directions, but for Manchester City and Manchester United, I'm going with a 2-1 Manchester City win. Chelsea versus Brentford. We see Chelsea at 1.34, Brentford at 7.5. The over-unders of this match sits at about 3.5, which we do know Chelsea over-unders have been pretty high this year, and I'd imagine the both teams score. So I would have thought both teams to score would have been around the 1.5 mark, maybe the 1.53 mark, but 1.62 is a little bit higher than I thought it would be, because we do know Brentford have all the capabilities to score, but they're usually much better at home. So let's look at Brentford away first. And like I said, they're much better away from home. As you can see here, they have a 3-1 loss to Tottenham, a 2-1 loss to United, a 2-1 loss to Fulham, a 0-0 draw versus Everton, and a 3-1 loss to Villa. The number one thing that sticks out to me here on their 4 losses are they scored in all of them, right? They lost every single one of their away matches recently, besides the Everton one, by a score of 2 or 3-1. Something to think about, high scoring, and they can score. Chelsea at home have been phenomenal overall, right? They've just beat Aston Villa 3-0 at home. They drew Arsenal 1-1, and they also beat Newcastle 2-1. I feel like the score is just kind of being shaped up to whether I want to predict 2-1 Chelsea or 3-1 Chelsea. The last thing I look at here is a head-to-head matches and make sure there's something crazy. And I mean, already, oh my God, already the first thing I see is that Chelsea have not been able to beat Brentford in 5 straight matches. Am I seeing that right? Brentford 4-1, 0-0 draw, 2-0 Brentford win away from home. How the hell does Brentford have 2-0 wins away from home against Chelsea? This is crazy. And then a 2-2 draw. Now, I don't ever really overcompensate for a prediction like this, but wow. I guess we're about to find out if Chelsea are actually for real. I mean, it's hard to say they're not for real. Like, Chelsea are so for real, but this is insane. I'm going to try to pretend like I didn't just look at that. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. Usually I would take the recent head-to-head a little bit more seriously than I'm about to do, but that was crazy. I'm going to probably bring that up on stream or something. I don't know. That was insane. Either way, though, I'm going to predict a Chelsea 2-1 win over Brentford. Southampton versus Tottenham. So we see Tottenham at 1.75 for the win, Southampton at 3.9 for the win. I mean, Tottenham is just coming off of some really bad results here, right? 1-0 against Bournemouth, not scoring is insane. Blowing a 2-0 at home to Chelsea's insane. Then also losing 4-3 is one thing, but having a 2-0 lead at home is kind of just what makes it so difficult. And then you have Southampton, who have not gotten a win since the Everton match, and that was November 2nd. So it's been a while. It's been a while since Southampton's gotten a win. And also it may feel the same for Tottenham, because I feel like that City match was, it's kind of a long time ago now. So recently we've seen a 3-3 draw. We've seen a 4-1 Tottenham win and a 3-2 Southampton win. The over-under for this match sits at about 3.5, almost up to 4. This might even get up to 4. That would be pretty crazy. And the both team to score market is 1.36. So they do see Southampton scoring. It's just a matter of how many goals is Tottenham going to score here. So for this match, Southampton and Tottenham, I'm going to go with a 3-2 Tottenham win. Bournemouth and West Ham is the final match of Match Week 16. We have Bournemouth on 1.7 odds. We have West Ham at 4.4 odd. The over-under for this match sits at about 3. early, 3.5, probably 3.25 to close. Both teams to score is 1.57, which is extremely low, but not super surprising. Bournemouth at home have gone BTTS in what? 1, 2, 3 matches recently. Both teams have had a both team to score result in 3 of their last 5 home and away matches, respectively. We look at the recent head-to-head between the team, we see BTTS no, yes, yes, no, no. So there's no real trend of both teams to score or not here. Bournemouth at home, when they've played West Ham recently, we've seen a 1-1 draw, a 4-0 West Ham win, a 2-2 draw, a 2-0 Bournemouth win, and as soon as we get further than that, then we're talking way too long ago. I think the one thing that's a fact about Bournemouth recently is that at home, they've been incredible, right? They've beaten Tottenham, they've beaten City, they've beaten Arsenal. What more could you really ask for from Bournemouth to show that they're good at home, right? But doesn't that seem weird? Doesn't it seem weird that Bournemouth have gotten insane results at home? West Ham could not be any more tragic. Outside of the Newcastle 2-0 win, West Ham have been super bad away from home. But it still begs the question, why is Bournemouth 1.7? Like, shouldn't they be like 1.6 maybe? Maybe 1.65 even? But 1.7 seems a bit interesting to me that they're giving this much respect to Bournemouth here. As much as it pains me to fade a both team to score that's about 1.57, and as much as it kind of annoys me to try to predict the obvious Bournemouth win here, I'm still going to go with a Bournemouth 2-0 win over West Ham. All right, boys, that wraps up the predictions for match week 16. Like I said, next week, I'll have a very detailed sheet of all my predictions, all my statistics for every team, for every match week, and for the main markets such as correct score, 1x2, over under 2.5, and both teams to score. You will be able to see if you've been profiting or losing on any of the markets or on any specific team. Whatever you want, it's going to be on the sheet just for a simple reference to how I've been doing over the Premier League season in 2024. If you guys haven't already, I'd really appreciate if you like the video and subscribe to the stream. We are so close to 5,000 subscribers. The goal is to get that by the end of the year. So if anyone's just watching, you haven't subscribed yet, it would mean a lot to me if you just hit that subscribe button. I will see you guys on the next one.